I knew he was going to be a problem the second he called my command line interface adorable. Like it was a rescue kitten, not the thing keeping their entire damn backend from imploding. He waltzed into the Monday all-hands like a TED talk got drunk at an equinox, tight shirt, tighter haircut, and a LinkedIn smile that made my teeth itch. Said we were entering a new era of agility and innovation, which is corporate for. Someone's getting fired by Friday, and it's probably the one woman here over 40 who doesn't post Slack emojis. He called himself Leo, but signed emails as L. Ascend, swear to God. I kept waiting for him to sprout angel wings and a crypto wallet. Said he'd bring clarity and velocity to product development, then asked if we could sunset the legacy architecture I spent 5 years engineering. That legacy he wanted to bury, it was powering 72% of their revenue. Now, I don't cry at work. Not because I'm strong, but because my tears dried up back in 2008 when our server farm caught fire, and I had to put it out with a Mountain Dew and a prayer. But something about the way this guy kept calling me ma'am with a straight face, while simultaneously scheduling brainstorms without inviting me, it lit a fuse. Before I go on, let me just say something real quick. Statistically, 95% of y'all listening right now ain't subscribed. That's fine if you're just here to lurk in the shadows like my last intern who stole office pens. But if this story hits you even a little, help me hit my first ever 10,000 subscribers. It's free, it's easy, and it tells the algorithm I ain't talking to an empty server rack. Now back to the mess. I'd seen his type before, kind who thinks Git is short for get it done fast and believes PowerPoints count as product specs. He started making small changes right away, renamed our sprint dashboard to the war room, cut code reviews in half, installed some AI pair programmer that cost us $2,000 a month to auto-suggest bugs. He started calling me the legacy whisperer. Said it like it was a compliment, like I wasn't the one who'd onboarded half the damn dev team, stabilized their third-party APIs, patched their billing system after the last CTO had a panic attack mid-launch, and rage quit via carrier pigeon. The real kicker, he started pulling my junior engineers into one-on-one coaching sessions, said he was mentoring them toward relevance. Translation, pumping them for intel while sowing doubt. I'd find them afterward, blinking like deer at a data breach, mumbling stuff like, said my unit tests were too emotionally safe. That week, my calendar dried up. No more invites to roadmap meetings. Product leads started pinging me in lowercase like they were scared I might reply in uppercase. Leo started a Slack channel called #Innovation Hub and conveniently forgot to add me. He posted long threads in there, screenshots of failed UX flows from 3 years ago with captions like "Time to evolve." And I sat there, watching, listening, smiling like a cat watching pigeons gather under a broken roof. Then one night, while updating some long-forgotten documentation, I stumbled on something. An old PDF in a dusty HR folder named Onboarding Legacy Archive V3 Final Revised. Inside it, my original employment contract from when I joined the company, back when we worked out of a WeWork with folding chairs, and the office dog was our only therapist. Page 7, Clause 14.2. Right there in black and white. In the event of termination without 90 days written notice, all intellectual property developed by employee during their term of employment shall revert to employee effective immediately. My lawyer ex-husband, God bless his whiskey-soaked brain, had added it himself. Said, trust me, they won't notice until it's too late. Turns out he was wrong. They never noticed. By week 2, I stopped getting invites to product syncs. No one said anything, of course, they just sort of stopped arriving, like the air in a vacuum chamber. The kind of silence that doesn't feel empty, but weaponized. My recurring stand-ups were merged for efficiency, which apparently meant Leo now hosted them without me, featuring a rotating cast of junior devs who looked like they just realized deodorant isn't optional. When I poked my head into one meeting, Leo smiled like a politician visiting a condemned town. Oh, didn't realize you were still on the loop, he said. On the loop, like I was a ghost from a deprecated wiki. Then came the audits. Leo called them transparency sprints. Translation, sending barely trained junior engineers to comb through my codebase with a checklist written by ChatGPT and a caffeine crash. They didn't even understand half of what they were reading, let alone what they were breaking. One of them flagged a redundant loop that was actually a recursive sanity check I'd built to catch memory leaks his new analytics plugin would have triggered like a landmine. I didn't argue, Didn't push back. I smiled. Took notes. Saved every Slack message. Archived every edit to our Confluence pages. Made a private Git fork and pulled everything with timestamps, comments, and diffs. Hell, even saved a screen recording of the time Leo pitched my own API framework in a call with a potential partner like he'd written it on a napkin over brunch. He called me institutional knowledge, like I was a fax machine everyone felt guilty unplugging. Said it in front of the team. I laughed. Loud. Told him, funny, I am the institution. What burned wasn't just the disrespect. It was the erasure. The slow, surgical removal of my fingerprints from everything I'd built. Features I'd architected, renamed, logs I maintained, archived, dependencies I'd warned against, reintroduced with a shiny new name and a six-figure licensing deal. But I didn't crack. Instead, I turned quiet. The kind of quiet that sets off smoke alarms in people who know better. I answered every question he asked, brief, professional, never more than required. One of the juniors tried to rope me into some half-baked agile retro. I nodded, logged in, and let them talk about velocity blockers while I reordered my receipts. And one night, around 2:17 a.m., the kind of hour only regret and system crashes keep you awake, I went back to that clause, the one I'd found in my contract, 14.2. I'd flagged it in red, but now I printed it, highlighted it in neon, annotated it, scanned it, sent it to my lawyer with the subject line, still valid. His reply 5 minutes later, subject, lol body, oh yeah, you've got them by the balls. I stared at that email for a long time, not because I doubted it, but because something in me shifted. Not rage, not revenge, just clarity. They were dismantling me piece by piece, under the illusion that I'd go quietly. But I'd built the engine. No one walks away from the machine without knowing where the kill switch is buried. It happened on a Friday, of course. Always does. Layoffs taste better to executives when they're served cold before a weekend, like some kind of sociopathic amuse-bouche. Leo was lounging in his designer gaming chair on Zoom, sipping something from a hydro flask the size of my torso, and grinning like a used Tesla salesman who just cleared a lemon off the lot. Hey, started casually, flipping his mic on like this was a podcast. So listen, I've been thinking a lot about roles, synergy, next-gen alignment, all that jazz. He leaned back, laced his fingers behind his head like he'd just dunked on someone at corporate horse camp. And I think it's time we sunset some of the old scaffolding. You know, retire the legacy in favor of velocity. I didn't say a word, just blinked slowly while he monologued. Had the energy of a man who read half a leadership book and thought Machiavelli was a startup influencer. Then he said it, actually said it. Anyway, long story short, you're no longer with the company as of today, but don't stress. Your fingerprints are all over our success. I mean, all your ideas now belong to us, right? He laughed. A sharp, stupid laugh. The kind that echoes inside your skull like a can of nickels being shaken by a toddler. No HR rep, no offboarding call. Just a Zoom chuckle and a Slack message 15 minutes later. Hey, sorry we didn't get to finish our convo earlier. Sending good vibes your way. Let me know if you need anything for your next adventure. Cheers, victory cheers, like we just split a pizza. I didn't rage, didn't yell, didn't call anyone. I logged off. Shut my laptop like I was folding a bad memory in half. Then I took a walk. Just around the block. Leaves were still falling even though winter had already set in. That Ohio gray sky hung low like it was listening. When I got back, I sat at my desk in total silence. Poured a bourbon, 2 fingers, no ice. Then I reopened my contract, printed it again, circled the clause, took out a highlighter and wrote in red ink over the margin, clause 14.2 the reckoning. Then I opened my email, to Mitchell C. Evans-esque. Subject terminated. Oh, notice? Attached, employment contract, final Git logs, Slack timestamps, system commit history, dated notes, and the full architecture map of the platform he was planning to rebrand under his innovation roadmap. Body. He fired me today with no warning, no paperwork. Just a call and a joke. Clause 14.2 is live. Initiate reversion process. Draft cease and desist for platform launch. Also, send an invoice. Let's make it sting. I hit send, and then I slept. Better than I had in months. It was 2016. I still remember the smell of that conference room, new carpet glue and desperation. The company was barely more than a pile of whiteboards and venture capital breath holding. They had a prototype that looked like a broken etch, a sketch, and a launch roadmap written in Comic Sans. But I saw the bones, the potential. The founder, Andy, was one of those rare weirdos with just enough vision and just enough panic to know he needed help. He sat across from me in a hoodie that smelled like stale IPA and asked me what it would take for me to leave my six-figure job at a Fortune 500. I didn't blink. Autonomy, no micromanagement, and full IP reversion if I'm fired without notice. He laughed, thought I was joking. That's when my then-husband, David, slid the paperwork across the table like a magician, revealing the last card in a deck. David was the kind of lawyer who could sue you with a smile and send a fruit basket to your widow afterward. At the time, we were still married, still talking in full sentences, still having sex that didn't feel like war. He drafted the clause after too many nights watching me cry into a keyboard over bosses who thought version control was a personality trait. Clause 14.2 was his love letter to me. Buried right after the boilerplate confidentiality nonsense, deep in a section no startup bro would ever bother reading. In the event that the employee is terminated without a minimum of 90 days written notice, all intellectual property, including but not limited to code bases, frameworks, infrastructure blueprints, product roadmaps, prototype schematics developed solely or jointly by the employee during the term of employment, shall revert to the employee effective immediately upon termination. Andy signed without even reading it. He was too busy calculating how much series of money was left and wondering if LaCroix was tax-deductible. And so I stayed. For 7 years. I built them an empire of clean code and scalable infrastructure. Brought them from crickets to customers. Watched them hire and fire C-suite clowns like a tech-themed carousel. And through it all, the clause sat there, quiet, patient, untouched. Until now. Back in the present, I was in Mitchell's office by Sunday morning. He didn't even offer coffee. Just opened his laptop and said, "It's showtime." We drafted the cease and desist first. Tight, surgical, and mean. Not aggressive, precise. We attached screenshots of my GitHub commits, all time-stamped, with pre-launch notes and original architecture docs that predated Leo's existence at the company by years. We added Slack logs, where I warned against structural overhauls he pushed through anyway, just to inflate his performance metrics. Then came the invoice. Not a round number. No, that's a rookie move. We billed them $2,427,910.46, a total derived from licensing projections, retroactive compensation, damages for unauthorized use, and a spicy little surcharge Mitchell called the asshole fee. I added a note. Your team may retain continued access to the product stack under a provisional license for 30 days, pending negotiation or immediate cessation. Any further use beyond this period will trigger penalties as outlined. Then I did something petty. Deliciously petty. I attached a photo of the clause, highlighted, annotated, time-stamped, and signed it with a Sharpie. You should read the fine print. Mitchell chuckled. You know they'll think it's a bluff. I hope they do, I said. It'll make the crash that much louder. He leaned back. You want me to send this today or wait until Monday morning when they're just sitting down to their $9 smoothies? I smiled. Let them choke on the straw. At exactly 9:01 a.m. on Monday, Mitchell hit send. 1 email, 1 page, 1 line of legal dynamite with a slow-burning fuse. It didn't need to scream. It just needed to exist. The subject line alone was enough to make an ulcer blink. IP ownership reversion, immediate action required. No long-winded explanations. No threats. Just the facts. Dear Mr. Ascend, per clause 14.2 of the attached employment agreement, all intellectual property developed by redacted during her employment is hereby reverted to her ownership, effective immediately, due to termination without proper notice. Continued use of said IP, including, but not limited to, codebases, frameworks, internal APIs, and associated documentation, is unauthorized and subject to licensing fees. Attached, invoice #1182 $2,427,910.46 further infringement will result in legal action. Below that, Mitchell attached the receipts, all of them. Git history showing over 2,300 individual commits, authored and time-stamped by me. Change logs tied directly to the core modules Leo was relaunching as his visionary rebuild. Screenshots of Slack messages where I'd explained system dependencies to his junior auditors, complete with their emoji reactions and dumb thumbs-ups. The original product roadmap I'd drawn up in 2018, now repackaged in Leo's deck word for word, down to the spelling errors in the title slide. At the bottom of the email, Mitchell added one final touch: a read receipt request. Just to twist the knife with professionalism. Imagine the scene in their glass-walled conference room. Leo with his jaw half-clenched, scrolling through the letter like he was reading an eviction notice written in Klingon. His ops manager nervously suggesting they forward it to legal. One of the investors blinking hard, wondering why the IP reversion clause was just now coming up, 2 weeks before public launch. But here's the thing: Leo didn't flinch, didn't respond, didn't even acknowledge receipt. 11:24 a.m. He posted a smug little update in the Innovation Hub Slack thread. Full steam ahead rocket, big week for the team. Let's own it, own it. Cute. He must have thought it was a bluff. Thought I was bitter and bored. Just another disgruntled ex-employee trying to scare the big dogs with paralegal bark. Maybe he assumed I'd back off once I saw the machine moving without me, that I'd blink first. He didn't understand something critical. This wasn't some sandbox side project. His entire relaunch was sitting on my spine. Every new feature, my logic, every optimization, my config files, even the splash screen he previewed in the investor update used my old UI scheme, down to the hex codes I'd picked on a rainy Wednesday with 2 cups of gas station coffee in my system and a flu I never told anyone about. By 2 p.m., Mitchell called me. No response yet. Good, I said. Let him cook. By 5:30, I'd already heard from 2 former colleagues. Leo had just wrapped a motivational Zoom call where he called the IP letter a speed bump, sent by someone who couldn't handle change. Told everyone the legal team had it under control. No one told him that speed bump was made of reinforced steel and spiked with legal napalm. That night, I poured a glass of wine and stared at the Git log on my personal drive. Line after line of dates, branches, and comments, most of them boring, some of them brilliant, all of them mine. It was a record not just of code, but of time. My midnight fixes, my 2-hour bug hunts, my bleeding fingers on launch nights when the caffeine wore off and all that was left was muscle memory and obligation. Leo thought he was launching a product. He was actually lighting the fuse on his own career. The launch went live on a Thursday. Pushed it at 3:00 a.m. Eastern Standard Coward hours, when no one with a soul is watching. I watched the splash page roll out in real time from my living room, blanket around my shoulders, laptop on my knees, a faint grin spreading like a heat leak. Same product, same bones, same backend I'd carved with digital calluses and duct tape logic. They just slapped a new font on it and rebranded my error messages to use emojis. Yo posted a selfie in front of the office espresso machine an hour later with the caption, "We shipped. We soared." Hash Velocity realized rocket. The comments were full of confetti gifs and hollow congratulations from people who still believe in hustle culture and oat milk. I didn't say a word, just waited. You see, before I left, I'd patched in a critical security framework, one that managed API authentication tokens and regulated external data pulls. Leo's auditors thought it was over-engineered, said it was paranoid coding, so they removed it after I warned them. I had flagged the vulnerability in 2 separate Jira tickets, repeatedly. Both were closed with the comment, replace W/lighter solution per CTO directive. And that lighter solution? Yeah, it had holes. The first crash happened 48 hours post-launch. One of their primary endpoints started throwing 403 errors to paying enterprise users. Within 3 hours, the customer support channel in Discord looked like a war zone. Can't authenticate. Session timed out. Just lost our data stream mid-call. Leo responded on Twitter with the worst possible sentence you can type during a product failure. We're looking into it. Everything's fine. By Sunday, the app was down for 6 hours straight. Their new lead dev used to ask me what a cron job was, went quiet on all platforms. Meanwhile, user logs showed attempts to manually bypass API controls, resulting in security flags that triggered an automated lockdown I'd built 2 years ago after a similar disaster nearly cost us a government contract. Poetic, really. Monday morning, the cracks spread. The investors started calling. And not just to Leo. Mitchell forwarded me a BCC from the company's internal legal team. We urgently require clarification regarding IP ownership as it relates to core product functionality. Pending litigation or licensing issues must be disclosed before Friday's board review. Translation: what the hell did you build this thing on? And who actually owns it? Leo's tone changed overnight. No more rocket ship emojis, no more espresso shots in front of launch metrics. He started turning his camera off during all-hands meetings. The confidence in his voice, once smug and booming, now came through thin and nasal, like he was talking through gauze. I received a call from a VP I hadn't spoken to in a year. "You wouldn't happen to be willing to talk, would you?" he asked gently, "just to explain your side of this." I told him I was busy, not out of cruelty, out of strategy, because this wasn't the climax. Not yet. Let them scramble. Let Leo sweat. Let the investors dig deep enough to realize the shiny new tower they'd been sold was built on sand and arrogance. That week, traffic to my LinkedIn profile jumped 230%. I didn't update a thing, didn't need to. The story was already writing itself. By Wednesday morning, the app was still technically up, but it was bleeding users like a gut-shot deer. API calls were throttling unpredictably. Data was desincing. Their once slick homepage now included a banner that read, "We're improving stability for an even better experience," which, in tech PR, translates to, "We broke something, and the person who could fix it now hates us." That afternoon, the board finally snapped. Investors issued a formal demand: halt all product expansion and marketing efforts until IP ownership is fully clarified. That wasn't a suggestion. That was the equivalent of corporate DEFCON 2. They froze budgets, paused ad spend, scheduled emergency sessions with the legal department. At 2:17 p.m., I got the email from General Counsel at company name. Calm subject: request for licensing negotiation discussion. They opened with pleasantries. Something about respect for my contributions and commitment to finding a solution that works for all parties. Could almost smell the panic sweat on their blazer sleeves. They asked if I'd consider entering a provisional licensing agreement in good faith. I waited exactly 17 minutes before replying. Enough time for them to imagine I was consulting someone even more dangerous. My reply: at this time, I am not open to licensing terms. I no longer trust your leadership's intentions or competency to steward my work. Please advise Mr. Ascend that further use constitutes infringement. No signature, no pleasantries, just a digital middle finger wrapped in legalese. The response came back within the hour. They understood, though they were disappointed. They asked if I would at least speak with the board directly. I didn't answer that one. Meanwhile, Leo was spiraling. Desperation makes a particular sound when it hits a Slack channel. It's the sudden ping of "can someone jump on a quick call?" At 11:46 p.m., followed by the deafening silence of no one replying. Then the leaks started. First, it was a small blog that covered startup culture. A side column buried under funding round gossip. Sources say a key product at company may be facing intellectual property disputes after the recent exit of a longtime engineer by morning. Tech Snitch had picked it up. Full spread. CTO under fire as internal IP battle threatens company relaunch. Sources report legal claims tied to reversion clauses, failure to retain key personnel, and questions over launch legitimacy. Investors are said to be furious. I didn't plant the story. Didn't need to. These things leak themselves when the ship is taking on water and the captain's too busy blaming the hull. That same day, someone forwarded me a screen capture from a company Zoom all-hands. Yo, looking puffy-eyed and colorless, was mid-sentence. "We're dealing with a hiccup in our rollout strategy. Rest assured, this will be resolved soon. We are optimistic about ownership being clarified. Ownership, not innovation, not growth, ownership. The very thing he'd laughed about when he fired me. The thing he thought he'd inherited with a smirk and a Slack emoji. And now it was unraveling. His investors were circling like sharks who smelled patent blood. His dev team was fractured and paranoid. Their product was technically live, but legally radioactive. And I was drinking tea by my window, watching the rain tap-tap against the glass like applause from the universe. The emergency board meeting was scheduled for Friday at 8 a.m. sharp. Less a meeting, more a corporate inquisition. Leo wasn't invited as a speaker. That alone told me everything I needed. I wasn't there, obviously. Word traveled fast through old channels. Ex-colleagues who suddenly just wanted to check in, LinkedIn posts that mysteriously vanished after 10 minutes, and a VP who accidentally CC'd me on an internal email with the subject line: contingency planning, post-ascend. By noon, Leo's profile was scrubbed from the company's team page. No announcement, no fanfare, just a quiet purge. Same guy who once posted motivational quotes like disruption isn't optional. Its destiny was now digitally erased by the very machine he thought he controlled. A press release came out a few hours later. Company is undergoing leadership transitions as part of a broader strategic realignment. We remain committed to innovation, integrity, and long-term value for our stakeholders. Corporate speak for. Our CTO just drove a Maserati straight into a legal landfill, and we're trying to hose off the wreckage. That evening, I got the call. It wasn't from HR, not even from legal. It was from the investor, the one with the real power, the guy who had turned Andy's pipe dream into a Series B monster and who had probably already made more off my code than I ever would. He opened with a calm, measured tone. First off, let me say, owe you an apology. I let him talk. He danced around the usual phrases, regrettable oversight, trusted the wrong people, clearly underestimated your contribution. Then came the pitch. We'd like you to return, not just as an engineer. We want you to serve as chief product strategist. Define the next chapter, your vision, your structure, and of course, full executive authority over anything you design. It sounded nice. On paper, it was a dream. Control, respect, a return not as the old guard, but as the architect they now needed to survive. But I wasn't here for dreams. I was here for leverage. I paused, not long, just long enough for him to feel it. Then I said, if I return, it's under one condition. Name it, I keep the IP, silence. I retain full legal ownership over everything I've built, I continued. You can license it. Month to month, revocable, on my terms. No blanket transfers, no automatic rights. I hold the keys. You get to borrow them, more silence. Then that's highly unconventional, so was firing me over Zoom. He laughed, short, sharp, genuine. Fair enough. Send the offer in writing, I said, and start the licensing paperwork. I don't come back without a pen in my hand and a firewall at my back. He agreed. We hung up. And I sat there, staring at my screen, watching the cursor blink like it was saluting me. I didn't feel euphoric, not even smug, just clean, like I'd rinsed something out of my bloodstream that had been festering there for years. Leo was gone. The company was mine if I wanted it, but more importantly, so was the code. Mitchell waited until the ink was dry on the boardroom bloodbath before firing the final shot. He updated the original invoice, added 4 new line items. Unauthorized post-termination use, $612,000 security breach liability exposure, $370,000 investor-reported damages, $285,000 bad faith clause trigger penalty, $1 million even grand total, $4,694,910.46. He didn't even bother with a cover letter this time, just sent the invoice straight to the new interim CEO with a subject line that read, Final accounting. Effective immediately. No legalese, no flourish. Just the numbers and a polite reminder at the bottom. Per our previous correspondence, all penalties are enforceable via binding arbitration. Please remit payment or propose schedule by end of quarter. When I saw it, I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my coffee on the NDA I was reviewing. And Leo didn't resign, he vanished. No LinkedIn post. No goodbye email. One day he was driving strategic reinvention, the next he was a footnote buried in the metadata of a dead product launch. I heard through the grapevine he tried to blame the legal team, then the auditors, then, hilariously, me, for not warning him more explicitly. But the board didn't care who sunk the boat. They just wanted someone to feed to the sharks, so they fed him. By the time I walked back through the office doors, the air had changed. Nobody greeted me like a returning hero. That's not how tech works. They just nodded, cleared my space, made room at the table. But this time, I didn't sit at the table. I said it. They didn't reinstate me as a full-time employee. That would have been too neat, too clean. Instead, came back as something they'd never offered before, a private consultant with veto power over any product that touched my codebase. Full autonomy. No managers, no alignment check-ins, no bullshit. Every line of my contract was written by me, reviewed by Mitchell, countersigned with trembling fingers by 3 separate executives. I wasn't there to rebuild the house. I was there to sell them the water when it caught fire again. The new CTO, a mild-mannered interim from a partner firm, tried to set up a welcome call. I declined, told them to email me only if the matter was billable, because I had already won. The app was stabilizing. The lawsuits were dying down. Investors were calming like wild dogs fed a steak, but none of that mattered to me. What mattered was the terminal window I kept open on my second screen. The same old repo, alive and breathing, still mine, still answering to me. People like Leo always think they're the protagonist in the story, that the clever old dev is just another obstacle to be optimized away. But they forget something crucial. Obstacles remember, and I remember everything. Last week, a junior engineer messaged me out of nowhere. Just found your old documentation. It's genius. I didn't realize you'd built, well, everything. I replied with a thumbs up and a quote. When I'd printed out and taped to the inside of my filing cabinet the day I first signed that contract. Turns out, when you fire a woman who wrote the rules, you better hope she doesn't remember where she filed them. Thanks for joining the fun, you office survivors. Subscribe for more switch-flicking drama. Let's make your former coworkers sweat.